Israel began, or the Zionist movement, began the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in February 1948, before even one Arab soldiers from Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, or Jordan entered Palestine.
There are several popular myths around the Nakba of 1948, following the birth of the modern state of Israel, in which hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were made refugees, dispersing to neighboring Arab states, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. For decades since, they have not been allowed to return to their homes by Israel. Palestinian insistence on the right of return and Israeli denial of said right remains one of the biggest obstacles to peace between Israel and the Palestinians. But if you ask why and how that many Palestinians became refugees in the first place, the dominant narrative you get is that they fled on their own on the advice of Arab armies coming to defeat Israel for them to return to their homes. But is this actually true? Was this why close to 1 million Arabs became refugees in 1948? This is the first myth Jewish-Israeli historian Ilan Pappe dispels, providing an accurate account as to how the Palestinians became refugees.
First of all, let's start with the Israeli claim that Arab leaders of neighboring Arab states and leaders of the Palestinian community called upon the population to leave. Any one of us who is a professional historian and went to examine this claim, and it's quite easy to examine it for a period like 1948, when there's no internet, there is no television, there's only one method in which you can try to persuade people to leave, and this is through the radio. And everything in the radio in those days in Palestine was monitored by the BBC, and the BBC has an archive in Reading, and everything that went in the air was recorded there. And we looked at these records, and there's no indication whatsoever for any such call to the Palestinians, and that was the only way. So that request never occurred. This is a lie. And it also, of course, you can examine it logically. Why would people who live in a village for 1,000 years decide suddenly to leave? That doesn't make any sense. It makes much more sense that you have to uproot them by force. So that's one fabrication.
Pappe examines the evidence and comes to the conclusion that the dominant narrative is false, that there was no indication that such a call by Arab armies to Palestinians ever happened. There is a famous saying in my country that if you see a giant rat out in the daytime, it's because something is chasing it. As Pappe rightly said, people don't just up and leave their homes when there are no credible threats to their lives and safety.
The other fabrication is the way Israel and even some supporters, liberal supporters of the Palestinians, still buy into it. They say the Arab world started a war against Israel, and because of that war, Palestinians became refugees. But this is not true. Israel began, or the Zionist movement, began the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in February 1948, before even one Arab soldiers from Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, or Jordan entered Palestine. So before there was any presence of any Arab army in Palestine, the Zionist movement already began massive expulsions of Palestinians.
Pappe goes on to dispel another popular myth, the myth that the Arab world, unprovoked, simply attacked a nascent Israeli state, trying to snuff it out in its infancy, with the Israelis, in the words of Ben Shapiro, miraculously winning against multiple Arab armies. Ilan Pappe dispels that second myth, citing what really happened.
What does that act in February? What were the acts in February 1948?
It began in February. It was a small operation of expelling few Palestinian villages, but from mid-March, the Zionist movement targeted the urban centers of Palestine. Until the first Arab soldier entered Palestine on the 15th of May 1948, already almost all the population of Jaffa was expelled. Almost all the population of Haifa was expelled. Now together these were more than 130,000 people. All the population of Akka was expelled. All the population of Baisan was expelled. All the population of Safad was expelled. So you have 5 major towns in Palestine that in March and April were totally depopulated by the Zionist forces. You can add to this West Jerusalem with its neighborhoods and 39 villages around it that were already expelled in April 1948.
It's very clear that the expulsion of Arabs from their villages preceded the intervention of Arab armies, with evidence suggesting that said expulsion was the reason for the intervention to begin with.
And what happened was that the mass movement of Palestinian refugees into the Arab capitals put pressure on the Arab governments, who were not very eager to interfere in Palestine, to do something symbolic to stop the ethnic cleansing. So what the Israeli called the Arab-Israeli War was actually an attempt, which came too late and was too little, by neighboring Arab states to try and stop the continued ethnic cleansing of Palestine. I think a particular event that really shook the Arab public opinion was the massacre in Deir Yassin on the 9th of April, 1948. So the news of the massacre, the news and the hundreds of thousands of refugees already coming to Amman, Cairo, Damascus, southern Lebanon, and so on, that what triggered an all-Arab reaction. And as I said, that reaction was not very powerful and came very late.
If all these events of expulsion happened before the military intervention of other Arab armies, then how could such intervention be a cause of an event that happened before it? That simply makes no sense. While I'm not under any illusions that the Arabs resisted the creation of the Jewish state, it is clear that that fact served as a moral justification of Zionist plans against the native Arabs rather than as a reaction to Arab hostility. By Zionist desire to make Israel a Jewish state, it would have been impossible for them to achieve that aim with an Arab majority. Expulsion was the only logical way to go.
And to this, of course, we can add, and we might talk about it, Israel also had a tacit agreement with Jordan, which meant that the only Arab army that really mattered in terms of experience and equipment, the Jordanian Arab Legion, was very neutralized because of that political agreement and did not put its share into the all-Arab effort to save the Palestinians, which led to the fall of Lid and Ramle as well. So another two Palestinian towns that were fully depopulated during the Nakba.
And this explanation makes sense. When refugees began pouring into neighboring Arab states with reports of forced expulsion and massacres, then such intervention by neighboring Arab states is not only reasonable but expected. If Putin can use the excuse of protecting ethnic Russians in Ukraine as pretext for invading Ukraine, why would we expect the Arabs of 1948 to do any less? I must hand it to the Zionists. They had a meticulous plan and executed it with near perfection. But they have created a myth around the formation of the State of Israel. A myth bought and believed by many worldwide. But it's taken critical minds like Ilan Pappe's to dispel such myths.